We are sitting here in a studio on what they call in the business standby.
Yeah, and I've never been good at that.
Is that a wheelchair joke?
Yep, it's actually in the book.
Let's get started. Are you ready?
I'm ready anytime you are, sir.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Hey, it's great to be with you here on the podcast. Glad you can join us. And I believe, Michael, are you around here somewhere?
Well, you know I am.
Oh, there you are.
I'm always where I'm supposed to be. I'm just not always doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, sometimes you get behind that big desk and I can't even see you, so I'm not sure.
Should we tell people what we're doing here? We just supposedly recorded an entire Roger Dykes Just Sayin podcast. Now, let me explain something. Roger has managed to attain A-Team PR here in Studio A, where we produce and edit his podcast. And that being said, in other words, Roger has professionals. Because when you hire professionals to do the work for you, then you don't have to worry about silly details. Like pressing the record button.
Well, actually, Michael, we have set a historical precedent here today.
Yes. What is that?
Because how many television, radio, podcast shows can ever say they had a lost episode while they were still making it?
Yeah, we had Kathy in here, and it's her job to make sure that all of this is running smoothly. On the other hand, am focused on the actual interview.
Well, I would suggest you focus on Kathy because she's fixing to hit you with something.
Hello, I'm Michael Shawn, and welcome to Roger Dykes Just Sayin. Roger Dykes is a teacher and counselor with a master's degree in family counseling from Texas Tech University. He is the owner of UV Blake Records and has written a book titled Non-Persons Rolling in a Normal World. And there's a few more things. Roger was born with cerebral palsy. Now a quadriplegic, he has been confined most of his life to a wheelchair. And for a while, even enjoying a career as a stand-up or sit-down comedian and after-dinner speaker. Disabled? Yes, but you forget about that pretty quickly because Roger thrives. So here is Roger Dykes. Hey, Roger, take 2. Man,
all right.
I am so glad that we are here this morning, and that's kind of the way I kicked off a while ago. We did mention Roy Rogers right at the beginning, at the crust of our take 1 of the Roger Dykes Just Sayin podcast, because you're sitting in your office and you are surrounded by a plethora, I'm using that word this week, by a plethora of museum-like television history and, more specific, black and white Westerns. You're the king. You got all that stuff. Is that the pizza guy?
Yeah, hang on. Cut just a minute. Let's start over, but let me get rid of this just a second. Good morning.
No.
I've got a situation here, Janice. Let me call you back a little bit.
Okay, no problem.
Bye-bye.
That's not the gal from the state, is it?
No. She normally calls me after we do the podcast, but of course we're doing it for the second time.
So you might say this is already buzzing into your love life.
Yeah, considering she's over 90. Seriously. That is kind of my love life in a nutshell.
Oh, Roger. Boy, this show is off to a zinger start, isn't it?
I think so. Should we kind of maybe start over one more time?
No. The Roy Rogers stuff, and you've got lots of other memorabilia and that sort of thing, but the main theme is Roy Rogers, Dale Evans, and Trigger.
That is true. When I was a very young person in early grade school, living in this part of the country, Channel 11, which was one of two stations we could get, would run Roy Rogers movies at 7:00 on Saturday morning.
On Saturday morning, that's right. I remember that.
And my grandparents, I was staying with them, and I'm sure they would have liked to have slept in. However, because they loved their grandson, they would get me up in time to get me in front of the TV to watch the Roy Rogers movie that started at 7.
There are so many people our age that did that exact same thing.
Well, I doubt that as many people did what they had to do for me, though, because Roger, me, did not like to miss the opening credits of the Roy Rogers movie. The Roy Rogers movies ran around 70 minutes. So what they would do at KCBD, they would start the movie in order to have it end at 8:00, because that's when the network started. So they would get me up at 6:30 or before, and I would spend the first 15 or 20 minutes literally watching the test pattern, waiting for the Roy Rogers movie to begin, which meant they had to get up that much earlier. Bless their hearts. Grandparents have a way of loving you.
Roger, do these stories just come naturally? You didn't make that up, did you?
Not at all.
That's right, folks. You cannot make this stuff up. That's right.
Well, you could, but I didn't. You can make up anything. I made up with a girl once.
Oh, I think you're right. We need to start all over.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, Roger, we're both giggling because you're trying to recreate the show you just had. That, as we discussed, that never happens. But Roger, you grew up in a time in this country where things were so different, and they were different for you because you had family alive.
Absolutely. Makes all the difference in the world.
Oh, yeah. That's the way the system's supposed to work. They help you out, and then your family fills in and takes over, particularly if there is bad weather or something and your caregivers can't show up, then there's family there for you. But when you outlive your family...
Yes.
Now,
don't do that.
Oh, gee whiz. Okay. So I got to tell you, folks, Roger came to me the middle of last week, and he said, he called me on the phone. Is what he did. He said, I'm concerned about something. He says, I just gripe, and it's always something wrong. And I'm always, he says, we never are really doing anything positive on the show because his world right now is so torn up and messed up by the fact that the state of Texas simply does not listen to him, or in general, people like him. And we've discussed all the reasons for that. And he said, sometimes I wish I could just talk about things and the other stuff that goes on in Roger's life. And in all honesty, folks, we've probably been remiss. Roger is a counselor. He does a lot of work with his church and teaching. And you've got other things that go on. You're an interior decorator, aren't you? Haven't I noticed that about you?
No, I can't get up on the ladder. What interior were you talking about decorating?
Well, like, for instance, when Christmas rolls around, your Christmas tree is like nothing else I've ever seen.
That would be true. That would be true. I guarantee you've never seen it.
What's the story behind that Christmas tree?
We had a cabin. My parents had a cabin in New Mexico, near Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Yeah.
And we went up there quite frequently during the summer. And one time my mother was climbing on the hill behind our cabin and found a piece of driftwood that looked like deer's antlers.
Just kind of gnarly and knotted. Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting.
So she brought it down and set it in front of the cabin and sat there for several years. And Fred that was visiting us up there asked if they could bring it to Lubbock to put it on a display. So we brought it down here. Well, that's where how the driftwood got to my house. One year we brought this piece of driftwood, and it had snow, artificial snow put on it for this display. Looked at that and said, "My goodness, that might make a good Christmas tree." So we began to decorate it. And over the years, it changed in its appearance, but basically, it's decorated with lights, and you simply unplug it and put it into the closet for the year. And when you get ready for Christmas, you bring it out, you plug it back in. It's totally decorated. You don't have to do anything else. It never changes. It never gets old. And it has some very good memories connected to it.
Well, the memories, yes. The part about it never getting old, I'm not sure about. But it is definitely unique. It is absolutely unique. It's a little spooky if you don't know what it is. It's this gnarly driftwood thing that stands up and goes out different directions, and it's all wrapped in Christmas lights. And it's the most unusual Christmas tree I have ever seen. I explained this on a podcast 30 minutes ago. There is a thing about Roger Dykes. If you're a friend with Roger and you care about him, you want good things to happen for him. And one of the things you'll do before you even think sometime is you call Roger up in the middle of the week and go, "Roger, how's it going?" And that is always a loaded question with Roger, but let me tell you why. It's not that you don't care or you don't really want to know, but Roger has these issues that we have talked about on the show, and they are, for lack of a better word, complicated. They are complicated by Roger's physical abilities, and they are complicated by the way the state chooses to ignore a lot of the things that Roger is dealing with. And they're the type of things where you listen to Roger for 20 or 30 minutes, and he will explain, if he knows you, he will explain in detail. And he will he will offer you an honest answer to your question. Well, here's the situation, and here's what we're dealing with, and so on and so forth. And when he gets all through, you're always in the same position. It is a very frustrating thing because there's not anything you can do. There is little or nothing that can be helped that you can do to make Roger, give him some relief, so to speak. For instance, you had a friend, Roger, who was quite well off and financially set. And this guy came to you and he said, just tell me what you need, Roger. I've decided that I want to help you. And you just tell me what you need, or tell me how much money you need, or so on and so forth. Now, what was the result of him asking that question?
Well, we discussed it, and he offered me several different possibilities, options, and things. But with each thing he suggested, one problem continued to crop up, and that was this. In order to be on the government program I'm on, and programs like this, one of the requirements is you have to be on SSI, that's Supplementary Security Income. To be on SSI, you have to be virtually penniless to be on the program, to be on that federal program. That federal program then opens the door for all these other programs statewide and so forth. If you have money, the government says if you got money, you don't need to be on these programs. And of course, that is absolutely true. The problem is that when the government spends, and I honestly need more than this now, but when they spend about $60,000 on you a year, you have to have quite an income to offset what you're getting here. If I make a couple of $3,000 or $4,000, or say someone gave it to me, and I put it in the bank and didn't try to hide it, played straight with it, paid taxes on it, whatever, it would immediately pop into the state computers, and I would be immediately removed from this program. So
if somebody really tries to help you in certain different ways, they can get you kicked off the program.
Yes, sir. Yeah. When that's one of the concerns I've got, is that I have to be careful when people say they want to do something for me, that they check with me before they do it. Because sometimes what they would think is a very good and well thought out idea on their part turns out to be very devastating to me. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate the help, though.
And so I have had people ask me, Roger, so is the guy asking for money? Can we contribute to him in some way? How can we help Roger out? That is a really frustrating question, because the answer is very simple. You can't. I don't care how much money you have. You can't, unless, as you pointed out in a recent podcast, unless it is a, what did you say?
Seven
figures to get you to the point to where you can provide all the health care and support that you need to be able to live your life, to literally be able to eat or breathe or go to bed or get up or go to the restroom again. It has to be so much money that you don't require any assistance whatsoever, ever, for the rest of your life, whatever that may be. And so that's a really tricky deal. And besides, when is that going to happen? So you have no choice but to get someone to pay attention to the situations that you're dealing with.
That would seem to be the case, and that's what I have been trying to do for the last several years, and with obviously little success, but nonetheless still making the effort to do so. I believe that I have ideas. I don't have solutions, primarily because I don't totally understand all of the problem. I understand the problem from my point of view, but as you and I have talked before, the difference between the disabled and other, quote, minority groups, unquote, is that there's not any one thing that makes everybody disabled. In other words, your disability, my disability may be different. So what you need and what you're desperately trying to get for help, if they gave it to me, it would be of no benefit at all. For example, let's suppose that you needed, and of course can get, but you needed a seeing eye dog to help you because of your vision. They could give me 13 seeing eye dogs. It wouldn't help me at all, but we would both be disabled. So our variations in disability causes a single cookie cutter solution to be next to impossible to work with. And of course, we all know that the government believes in cookie cutter solutions. They want to write one law, one bill, one thing, and have it cover a block of people, and it just won't work. And they must, in order to really make this thing work well, they've got to put some different ideas together and understand that every solution is not a single solution that works for everyone.
Wouldn't it be awesome? Wouldn't it be just seemingly make perfect logical sense for the government to use intelligent people who are on the program and have been all of their life, and to help frame the reality and the problems that folks are having that you're dealing with, instead of sitting in a boardroom or an office somewhere in Austin going, well, I expect that this is what we ought to do, and I assume that this would be the problems, and surely if we do this and this, that's everything that they're going to require to live a healthy and normal life. But that's not the case, is it?
No, and of course, what makes my situation unique, and I do not know how many other people in the state of Texas who are on this program deal with this, but in my case, the program, as we've said before, was designed to be family-oriented, meaning you have family that picks up the slack, as you mentioned earlier, and does things for you when there's no one else around.
And quite simply, you have outlived your family.
Exactly. There is no family, so therefore I'm having to count on paid caregiver help for everything. And they do not have, the program was never designed with that eventuality in mind. It just isn't, and because they don't provide enough hours and they don't provide enough money to get that kind of help available. And that's one of the things that they need to consider, look at, and let me make some suggestions of how we can improve an existing program without increasing the money dramatically. Now, I do believe we're going to have to increase the money simply because it hasn't been increased in a number of years, and the economy is going up. If, in fact, the current idea in Washington that we're going to have a $15 an hour minimum wage before very long, were that to go into effect, I honestly don't know what would happen to me, because obviously they would have to put more money into the program, dramatically so. But I'm fearful that instead of doing that, they might just cancel the program.
Well, if you're far enough out there in la-la land, you figure, well, it's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect you too, Roger. It's going to, you'll get a raise, your people will get a raise, and so on and so forth. But that hasn't happened yet.
No, it hasn't. And I don't know that it will. So, yes, in terms of basic concern, I have tremendous concern, not over the specifics as much as is it going to get to the point that they don't want to put that much money into the program, and therefore cancel it.
One more little side issue I'd like to bring up in the time that we have left. You pointed this out, and you didn't do it so that we could talk about it on the podcast, but I think it is just a great example of how things are being run right now. And that is you stumbled, I'm not sure how you found this out, but you stumbled over the fact that if you were mentally less capable, I'm going to use the word for lack of a
mentally challenged.
If you were thank you. If you were mentally challenged, you would get the kind of support financially and everything else that you need. And how was it that you said to me, your care and your needs are exactly the same, but your IQ is too high to receive it?
That is true. The program is HSC. I don't remember what that stands for, but you can Google it here in Texas. And it is a program designed for the mentally challenged people, which that's great. But what they have done is they've made the assumption that we're not the same because I am more intelligent than the people in that particular program are able to be. You must have an IQ of 70 or below.
But your needs are exactly the same.
Physical needs don't. Well, not only that, I will go one step further. Mentally challenged people have less physical needs than I do because they can dress themselves. They can walk. They can do a lot of things I can't do physically, but they need someone there to help them mentally. And I totally want that to be there. I'm not trying to badmouth that program. I'm simply saying the physical needs of both the individual with a low IQ and mine, whatever IQ it is, probably about 90, but nonetheless, whatever it is, are the same. I need food cooked for me. I need things done for me. That some of the things that I need done, as I say, they can do on their own, but they need someone there. Knowing you need something as opposed to not knowing what you need does not change the need. And so the program that I'm speaking of pays almost double what I'm allowed to pay on this program. And if I could pay double what I could pay, if my ability to salaries were raised for my caregivers, I would be in much better shape than I am now, and the needs would be almost identical.
Roger, I think it's important to point out, too, that we're not talking about Roger wanting more money for Roger. We're talking about you being able to pay your caregivers who work directly for the state, but the state has forgotten this niche of caregivers and the amounts and the restrictions on usage of them and professionally has gotten to the point to where it's just really hard for you to work with, if at all. And,
well, it's going to get very shortly where I don't know whether I'll be able to find anyone that will work for the amount of money I can pay, because salaries are going up around the country before minimum wage. We're just talking salaries in general. You can now go to work for Target, and you can make more money stocking shelves in the beginning than I could pay you after you've been here 10 years.
Okay. And Roger, the other thing is, of course, a lot of people are going to be hearing something like this, and we've pointed this out before, and say, well, he just needs to go to a nursing home. If they put you in a nursing home, which would severely restrict your ability to do a lot of the things that you do. But yes, if they put you in a nursing home, it is going to be significantly more expensive. This whole arrangement that you have is, among other things, saving the state of Texas money.
Well, that's the only reason it's there, because if this costs the same as a nursing home, the state of Texas, I don't want to badmouth the state of Texas. I speak of it generally, but they don't care about Roger, but they care how much money it costs to keep Roger going. And it's cheaper for Roger to live at home. In this circumstance, no, they're glad I can do what I do, but the bottom line with government generally revolves around money, and it costs them less money for me to be in this situation the way we're doing it than it would be to put me in a nursing home. But by the same token, they could raise my standard of living here significantly and still be below the nursing home cost factor, because nursing homes are going up too. It's costing the state more and more if they put someone in a nursing home. So they could effectively raise my standard of living here and still be below the cost of putting me in a nursing home.
I think it's time for us to sing Happy Trails for this particular podcast. But that was, there are most of the people under the age of 30 don't even know Roy Rogers, Dale Evans, Happy Trails.
That's true.
That sort of thing.
That's
if they'll keep tuning into this podcast, you can fill in all those blanks for them.
Right.
In fact, on your artwork for your next podcast.
Yes, sir.
I think are our Roy Rogers pictures all tied up in publishing?
Most of them are.
Surely not.
Well, if you get their private photos, they used to be able to use those, but I don't know who the copyright.
You're their biggest fan, Roger. They have to make allowances. I'm telling you, you stick with me.
All right.
You'll only be arrested for short periods of time.
Well, that's good, because do you realize if I'm arrested and put in jail, the state will take care of me for nothing? That would solve a lot of problems.
Oh, Roger Dykes Just Saying. We'll be back in 3 weeks.
All right. Thank you. Be back with us.
You've been listening to Roger Dykes Just Sayin. If you'd like to get a message to Roger, his Facebook account is listed as Roger Dykes. Become a friend, or you can send your questions and comments to rogerdykes51@gmail.com. That's ROGERDYKES51@gmail.com. Our podcast reveals a new episode every 3 weeks. Rollout is on Wednesday evening, shortly after dark, Texas time. Join us next time for our next episode of Roger Dykes Just Sayin. I'm Michael Shawn. On behalf of Roger Dykes, thanks for listening.